All right, good morning. It is right now 5:51 a.m., which is probably the earliest that I've started one of these videos. I don't know. I'm not sleeping great at the moment. So I figured, why not just start on one of these videos? I'm reading a book right now, actually, which I wanted to recommend, which is called The Hail Mary Project. And if you've heard of it, you probably like it. And if you're watching these videos, you would like it, I think. It's like a sci-fi book, and I've read very, very few fiction books. I mostly read nonfiction, but I mean, one of my friends actually recommended this book, and he said that he picked it up and just started reading it and couldn't put it down for like 150 pages. And so that kind of got me intrigued. And then I wasn't really interested in it, and finally decided that, well, I'll try it, because I'm sort of hesitant about sci-fi books. But I did the exact same thing. I was like hooked from the first page, honestly. Like, the first page is great, and it just keeps you interested. I don't know. I don't think I've ever read a book that I've been as invested in, as excited about reading. It's essentially about this guy who wakes up from a coma, and he has no idea what he is, who he is, or where he is. And it's a sci-fi book, so it plays out in space somewhere, and he then just is on this ship sort of thing, tries to figure out, where am I, what am I doing, how did I get here, all those sort of things. And it's very well written, and it's super exciting. So if you haven't read it and you're looking for a book to read, or if you're looking to even get into reading books, I think like this is a great start to get into reading books, because this is such a good book. There are probably lots of books out there that will hook you like that, but for me, I've never been as hooked as early. Like, I feel like I almost got interested in it within like a few sentences of the first page. So it's great, honestly. All right, let's get into it. We don't have a lot left on this app. Like last video, I said we just have the edit profile info. We just need to make sure that we can edit our information. And then on a call, we need to add a button to call users. So this is literally, we have, I don't want to say literally, because there's probably 5 more things that I haven't figured out yet, or I haven't realized yet. But I think for the MVP, we just have 1, 2, let's call that 2, and 3 more features to add. And this is just a button to call a user that you've matched with. So if you've matched with someone, obviously you want to be able to contact them again. So there's a button to call them if they're online. But we also need a call page for that. So if we're calling a user that we've already matched with, then that page might look slightly different to the random page when you're calling people. And then we just need to make sure that we can edit our profile. So when we're on the profile, we need to be able to actually edit all of this stuff, which right now we can't edit. So that's what we need to make sure we can do. And it's not very difficult, I don't think. But I think the most difficult thing is going to be the edit page. So that's what we're going to tackle first. Take the hardest thing first and then move on from there. So what we need to do is I guess I am a little bit tired, but that's okay. I don't know if we have a location. Let's see if we do have that. So the location picking widget, I don't know if from the sign up page, I don't know if that is a widget or if that is part of that page. I don't know how I've done that. Widgets. Location picker is a widget, so that's good. Okay, so location picker is a widget, which means that we don't really have to bother with it. Or we know how to do it. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's just what I've been thinking about doing is actually combining Claude and like Grok or ChatGPT to get more out of Claude. So essentially first writing out what I think the prompt should be to ChatGPT or to Grok, and then asking them to like help me make this more clear. And then they might be able to actually clarify what I want. And then I send that prompt to Claude. Hopefully then meaning that I use up less of my Claude messages. If that makes sense. So All right, this will be interesting. We'll see if it actually worked. The idea was to get a grok basically to update or enhance my prompt, which I tried. And now we'll see if we get the result that we want. Ah, okay. Looks pretty good. But let's see if we just update something. So update. Ain't much of a thing. And the update profile picture is there. And then press save. I ain't much of a thing. Another exception was thrown. Deactivated as tester unsafe. Well, okay. Let's see if we run it on. Because we need to see if this actually updates anything or if it doesn't. So we're going to run it on this device too. But we didn't remove this button, which I guess is like got lost in translation, but it's probably not too difficult. So I'm going to do some fixing of that myself. Okay, how come I can't go between these things? No. What? Okay. All right, so now the button is gone. Now we're going to test some things and see. I ain't much of a thing. That's good. It means that the updating actually updated stuff. So let's try to select a new picture. Okay, so the picture thing doesn't work anymore. Fuck. This sort of stuff is so annoying. All right, let's see if it actually works now. It's such a weird way of like programming doing this with ChatGPT or Claude, but what the fuck? Okay. So I guess we'll have to debug it. But yeah, it's such a different way of programming. I think I'm thinking about this and trying to figure out like what do I actually think of it, because a lot of people are like or sometimes people watch my videos. I don't know what my purpose here is really, but sometimes people watch it and they're like, oh, he's using AI to do it, so they stop watching. And I think that's fine, because I think there's always going to be a sort of nostalgic yearning for the good old days, or like the I don't know, there is something, and I feel this too, there is something about you yourself writing every line of code. But I think the way I think of this is that, well, yes, there is something about writing every single line of code, but I wouldn't have been able to do that with Flutter even if ChatGPT and that stuff didn't exist, because I would have still had to use things like Stack Overflow or any other Google search result that I would get for how to solve different problems, blog posts, tutorials, all kinds of things to understand how to do things. And it wouldn't necessarily, like, it would definitely help me to a certain point, maybe get to the place where I could just write it myself. But it would still a lot of times be faster to just, I don't know if that's what bootstrapping is exactly, but I think it's sort of that. And it's like if someone else has created a widget for something, it's going to be so infinitely faster for me to just reuse that widget than to write it myself. However, there's still like a sort of romantic ideal of sitting here with my headphones on or something and just writing every line of code myself that I can appreciate. But it all depends on what your goal is, I think. And my goal isn't to my goal is really to become better at making apps, if that makes sense. So the way that I think I can do that, and the way that I think the industry is moving, is that, I mean, how long have these apps or these AI tools been out there? Not very long, like 2 years or something like that. I think 2 years is the time frame that people have been using it for this stuff. Maybe a little bit longer, I don't know. And it's already like this good, where I can just tell it to fix this, and then it will write the entire piece of code for me, and I can just paste it and save it. Now, it's not perfect yet, so that means that it's just definitely creating a lot of unnecessary bugs and stuff. And a lot of times the debugging that I would have done on my own about an error that I had to Google and figure out like what have I done wrong here, and how does this how does it work, or what am I doing wrong essentially. Now that is more moved into like dealing with prompts and getting better at telling Claude or ChatGPT to make a better prompt, or like to fix an issue that they created, like this thing where the screen just turns black. And you kind of end up sometimes in situations where you just ask it to like, okay, the screen turns black, make it not do that. And then it says, okay, I fixed it. And then you go back and it does the same thing again. So you sort of, it's sometimes, I think, from an external perspective, watching this, it can look like, and it feels like, is this really worth it? Would it just be better if I did this myself? Yes, it would be better if I understood how to, or where the actual error occurs. But the thing is, I would have run into this error myself if I was working on this. And I would have had to Google, how do I solve this error? What is happening? Why is this happening? And I am not convinced that I would be faster at solving it than ChatGPT or Claude or Grok are. And if my goal is to just create an app as fast as possible, then I think it makes sense to use those tools. So depending on what you're into and why you go watching my videos, I don't know, my idea is just that I'm building a startup, and this is just one small part of that, is creating the app. Even though it might feel like it's the biggest part, it's actually just, in my opinion, a small part of it, because there's so many other things that are necessary that need to fall into place, that just getting an app built is like, that's like step 0 out of 100 that we need to do in order to make this an actual thing. Marketing being like step 1 to 50, I think, of that. But now the app has to be good and all that stuff, but just building it and getting a base product out there is really just step 0, I think. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this. It just creates the same issue. I'm a little bit scared that my Claude messages are going to run out in like a few seconds. So we'll see. Because I'm spending characters that I don't have. Also, I've tried to update the subscription, but I have a business. So I have a business credit card that I tried to pay for it with, but it doesn't allow me to do that for some reason. I don't really know why. So, yeah. And I'm just a little bit lazy to do it with my own private card and then having to transfer the money and all that stuff. So I guess I'm sort of biting myself in the ass by not doing that. But yeah, I'm probably going to have to do it. Now that I say it, I'm just like, why am I being so ridiculously stupid about that? Because really, like, Claude has been... Comparing Claude to the other ones, I just feel like Claude is miles away at this point in terms of like, yes, Grok and ChatGPT have been good, but they tend to change things, first of all. So like existing functionality that you want to stay the same, it just changes that randomly and you have no idea why. It will just remove things from your code without, even if you're like instructed very, very clearly to never do that. A really good example is I'm trying to learn Spanish via ChatGPT. And so I've given it the instruction to, whenever it tries to teach me like glossary or vocabulary, if I don't know the word, I will ask for a hint. And then it should tell me just a short like hint about what the word could be or mean. And like 5 times out of 10, it will actually tell me the word in the hint. So it'll be like, llevar is like one word, and that means to bring or to carry. And in the hint, it will say like, okay, this is a sort of word where you like, imagine that you're going somewhere and you have to bring something, and that is what the word is. And it's like, well, you just said the word, and it just gets me so frustrated. And I feel like sometimes when I talk to ChatGPT, I feel like I'm a IQ-less person that doesn't understand that this is not a real person. I get like frustrated at it, and I'll be like, no, never do that. Never, ever, ever, ever tell me the word in a hint. Always do the other thing. And I've given it that prompt, like never, ever, ever do this. Never do this again. Don't ever do this again. Under no circumstance do this again. And I've even asked it, like, is there a way for me to instruct you? Because I've asked it like, okay, you keep repeating this mistake. So is there a way for me to format my prompt so that you never do this again? And it says, okay, I understand. That's fine. I'll never do that again. And then the next day it will do it again. And I'm like, this is so annoying. And that's the same thing with coding, apparently, with them. They just don't really listen to your instructions that well, or they don't remember the instructions from earlier on, which kind of makes sense because I couldn't imagine how it could possibly do that, like without taking up just a huge amount, maybe not a huge amount of data, but processing power at least, because it would have to, the data isn't that much because it's just text, but processing power of going through that text with every message that you send to ChatGPT. So like, let's say I have a message history of like 100,000 words, let's say. If every time I send a message to ChatGPT, it has to go through those 100,000 words and figure out how do I respond to this, it's going to take just way, way longer, I think. I'm not an expert, but this is what I think. It would take just way too long, which is why it kind of disregards some old things, but it also keeps some things. And I think it keeps updating this slowly, which is why over time, it might actually lose the concept of certain things from the past, if that makes sense. Okay, interesting. We get 2 profile pages. So which one? Is the one that we should use? I don't know. Try it again. Aha! Did it work? It did work. Okay, nice. Now we can change our stuff. Okay, good. Okay, the unmatch thing we also need to do. So matches. Unmatching. Okay. So this means that we now have done the edit profile picture or the edit profile info, the age preference, about, and location. And again, this is what is so good about these AI tools. Like it literally selected all of the right, I guess, industry standard type of ways of doing these things. Like I don't personally know off the top of my head what is the way to how do I make this look when you press edit? Like what do you do? I don't actually know. So I would have to like research, maybe look up some design. Now you can definitely make this look better, but again, what we're doing right now, we're just creating an MVP. We just want something that works, something that people could use. It doesn't have to look great. Especially not things like this, like editing your profile. Does it really matter that much? As I say that, I also feel like, well, how good have people done who said things like that? I don't know. Like sometimes I feel like the difference between doing okay and doing great is caring about those small things. But the things I do care about this is just that I know no one will use the app when I release it. Like maybe a couple of you guys will download the app and use it, but I know that's not when people are going to start using it. So, and I know that we need to still figure out some kinks, if that's the word. It's the word in Swedish at least, maybe not the word. Well, it is the word in English, I'm pretty sure. Either way, we need to figure out some of the issues with the app before before going all in on like design, because design doesn't matter as much as having the logic or the actual functionality of the app work. If the functionality of the app works, then you can start looking at the design of the app, I think. As long as you have like a decent starting point for the design, which I think we have. I mean, this looks like a profile to me. We could change the fonts and things like that. And that's pretty easy to do as well. But for now, I think that is good. So now let's add a call button to the matches page. On sign up, make sure to compress the profile picture. Okay, test a real phone call. Don't match users with someone who disliked them. Okay, I think we're going to try Claude at this and see if it can just create the button to call a user and the page to call a user. I'm going to try to do an enhanced prompt and then we'll see if it works. Okay, I don't know how I haven't realized this, but I just realized that this actually isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. It might not be that difficult, but it's just not as easy as I thought. So it actually requires quite a few things. We need to, first of all, create the call page. So what the call page looks like. But we need to have a calling feature. So when user A is waiting for user B, this could just be the phone call with just an indication that we're waiting for them to join. And then we need a receive call feature. So this means when I call someone, I haven't even thought about this, but when I call someone, they have to get notified somehow that I'm calling them. Depending on how, I don't know if I want, well, to start with, you're only going to be able to receive a call when you're in the app anyway. So we don't have to notify the user outside of the app. Only notify user within the app. No need for external. Okay, so when you receive a call, we notify the user within the app and we don't need to have any external notifications. All right. So this is what we need. So how the frick do we do this? When pressed, we should Okay, I'm actually getting like a little bit of adrenaline. This is ridiculous, but I'm getting a little bit of adrenaline because I know that it can't be long until I have run out. I'm literally, as I'm speaking, I ran out of freaking. I reached my usage limit. It will reset at 11 a.m. Okay, we're gonna subscribe to Max now because this is so stupid of me not to do this. I mean, the return on investment on this could potentially be infinite. So at least we can try it for 1 month and then see how far we get in that month. And then I will, I don't know, not do it again. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to have to stop the recording. All right, we're back and we have Max. So let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm noticing now that for some reason it says that they're offline, these users, which I don't know why it would say that. So we're going to go database, calls. Okay, now they're online. Failed to start call. All right. right, now is pretty much going to be a do or die moment, where I've gone with Claude back and forth, and I think we might have solved it because we got to a different point on the server side this time, which means that we might have actually solved the issue. So let's press call here on this page and see what happens. Pressing call means that we get the notification here, woman calling. We should really get a profile picture here. We can update that later, but let's press accept. Null check operator used on a null value. What the fuck? Okay. I guess we have to debug that. But we seem to call updated successfully. Nice. So the thing works on the back end side, I think. Now we just need to figure out what the error is on the front end side. All right, we have a phone call. And we have a timer up here saying how long we've been in the phone call. Finally, this seems to work. End the call, ends it on both ends. What happens if we go back and try to call again? Okay, this for some reason doesn't work. I don't know why that doesn't work, but this doesn't work. So you can't call twice for some reason, but this still works, I think. Going to the random person generator, we still end up in the phone call. That's great. But calling again after you called once doesn't work. And I don't know why that is, but we'll figure that out at some other point. At least we got a really big thing done today. I can't express how big this thing was. Because now we can call our matches, which means that once you've matched with someone, you can actually continue talking to them, and you can actually, build a relationship with that person if you'd want to, which is cool. And I'm very happy with this. Now I need to write down what we need to do so that we don't forget. But right now, button to call user, that works. We have calling feature, receive call works. And then the next thing that we need to do is make sure users can call multiple times. Okay. I think that's it. We've got something, and I need to stretch because it's 9 a.m. right now. I've been sitting for 3 hours straight. Really good effort today, and I'm really excited. I'm happy that I paid for the premium or premium version of Claude, because even though I feel like it kind of got worse after I paid for it, I don't think it did. I think I just added I think as soon as I paid for it, I asked it to do this ginormous feature. But honestly, it did pretty well at this. I mean, we've added functions to Supabase. We've altered tables on Supabase. We've created a notification. We've created a new page. We've created multiple new pages, actually, because we created the loading page for when you're calling someone and the connecting page and all that sort of stuff for that. We added a button, all that stuff within like, I think an hour, 2 hours maybe, which is pretty decent, I think. And I wouldn't have been able to do that in in double that amount of time on my own. So that was really good. Now we need to make sure that that is a little bit more robust. We might also need to add some sort of limitation to users so that we can't, because from my point of view, I'm going to be the one paying for this. So I need to make sure that users don't just use up all their phone calls straight away, if that makes sense. So we need some sort of, or use up all of my phone calling time on these services that I'm using. At the same time, I feel like unless people are exploiting the system by just like two friends calling each other and just leaving it to just use up my minutes, which could happen. Unless that happens, or if I protect myself against that, I don't know where I'm going with that, but that could happen, and I don't want that to happen. So I need to make sure that I protect myself from that, so that we can actually have users calling each other. But I think that maybe even without limitations, if I reach the limits and people use it fairly, if that makes sense, which you can't rely on, but let's pretend that people used it fairly, then I think that I would have enough minutes on Agora and enough stuff on Supabase for it to be able to actually get to a point where if I do reach those limits, then the app is actually getting a decent amount of traffic. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but I'm tired. So now we need to add the feature to unmatch. Make sure that the compression of the profile picture works even when you're signing up. And make sure users can call multiple times. And add a limitation. Add Okay, so you might even want to have, I just realized, a system where you have like a total limit that you have for the day. Like, this is my daily allocation of minutes that I can talk to people, and that runs out when you're talking to your matches, or to, even if you're just talking to randos. And I don't love premium stuff when it comes to dating apps, and I don't know how I'm gonna like stand when it comes to that, like where I'm gonna place myself when it comes to that. But a really obvious monetization strategy for this is, well, pay for it and you get more minutes. Super easy. Nothing fancy about it. Nothing about like you get more matches. You don't get anything like that. You don't get super likes. You don't get stuff like that. You just get more minutes to talk to people, which I think is it stays in line and true to the genuine approach that I'm trying to have, where I want this app to feel like it's genuinely looking to connect people. And from my end as the developer, I would love for the phone calls to be free. I can't afford for the phone calls to be free if the user base gets big enough. Unless we take in like investors and things like that, which might happen at some point. I don't know, but I'm not actively looking for investors right now. And I don't know really at what point an app like this would be interesting to investors. Although I'm pretty sure, I'm not pretty sure, but I think that once this app is finished, in terms of like at least an MVP that's working, at that point, I think it's actually, it would be ready to go to like meet investors and see if they are interested. But ideally, from my perspective, I'd want to have investors approach me and not me approach investors, because I think that's always a better way to do it. But I don't know how I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm even going to need investors. Like the ideal for me is, I don't know if you've heard about Derek Sivers, but if you haven't, go listen to the first episode of him on the Tim Ferriss podcast. I have heard later stuff from him, but I would say that I'm not really as connecting with him as much lately as I did in that first episode. That first episode is great. And what he did was he created this company and he sold CDs online with it via a website before this was like a thing. And he just took a little percentage off of every CD sold. And he had tons of people come up to him and try to invest and buy his company or do whatever. And he would just say no, because there was no need for him to get investors. Like the whole thing was automated. He didn't have to really work on it. And he was making a lot of money from it. And it was like, yeah, sure, I could make more money, but what's the point? So that would be my ideal dream scenario, is building an app like this that works and just having like the simplest monetization strategy out there. And if people want to use it, and then not take on investors. So not like, because what could happen also with investors is you could dilute the product and it could become something different because they want you to do something else or they want you to focus on something different. And I think the more you remain in control yourself, the better for most things. Both for me as a person, it will be better, and also for the app as a whole, I think it will be better. So the ideal is just get to a point where I'd be making enough passive income from the app that I pay for all the services, of course, but then also make the money that I need to live, if that makes sense. So that would be great. And a good way to do that might be to pay for minutes, and you could just like pay $1 for 10 minutes and then you pay another $1 for 10 minutes more. It could be something like that. I don't know what the pricing would be, but it would have to be calculated based on how much it costs to work with Agora and how much it costs to work with Supabase. And that would be the way I would figure it out. But that is a really clear and I think ethical revenue model for this app. Anyway, I'm tired. I'm going to go do something else now, and I'll see you in the next video.